Hello, welcome back everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. So in light of recent peak oil demand predictions and forecasts coming out from a various number of government agencies and corporate entities like BP, figured I'd make this quick video from a potentially different angle, as there will inevitably be some specific point of oil demand height globally that oil demand will thereafter never again touch. However, it's not going to come about out of some natural energy transition as it is seemingly often forecasted as being, and that EV adoption will continue to grow at an increasing rate, liquid fuel will be phased out, and that everything's just going to constantly continue becoming more and more efficient on some eternal upward linear trend, as if there is somehow an infinite amount of energy in any particular liter, gallon, or unit of fuel. Well, EV adoption has already started to slow down. It is oncoming, but not from this gradual natural transition sort of way. It's going to be brought about much more chaotically as a result of much larger ups and downs that are brought on by various events and decisions. For the primary example of one that has already taken place, Russia had an oil demand level of about 3.7 or 3.8 million barrels per day before invading Ukraine, and in the economic fallout after doing so over the last 2.5 years, they have seen a decent drop in their domestic oil consumption down to the upper twos instead of the upper threes. Sudan had a domestic oil consumption level of around 200,000 barrels per day, and it has since, over the last year or so, fallen down to almost zero because Sudan broke out into a civil war last year. The Libyan civil war, of course, could kick off again at a moment's notice, which would drop their domestic consumption from 200,000 barrels per day down to close to zero. The Taiwan conflict, when China does launch its invasion attempt, both the immediate economic consequences and then the longer term lingering after effects and internal turmoil that will be caused will at the least see them drop off in their oil demand levels by a few million barrels per day. Currently, they're averaging around 17. So within a year or two of making their doomed to fail invasion attempt, they will likely drop down to at least maybe 13, possibly 12. Taiwan itself also will suffer a very immediate drop in oil demand. Theirs is usually around 900,000 barrels per day. And when everything starts, their oil demand will definitely be probably only a couple 100,000. The severe crash in tourism numbers surrounding countries in the region we'll see because of fear of the ongoing conflict that will keep people away. Over in the Middle East, we have the whole ongoing situation, the next level of which that is nearing soon is the IDF invading southern Lebanon. However, as things one step, two step, three step along the whole process, and end up where they were always going to, with some form or another of likely air campaign against Iran. The damage and internal turmoil brought about from such within Iran will see Iran's domestic oil consumption levels take a significant drop, although theirs have already been going down just because of infrastructure breakdown and failure within the country. We're now more down to around 1.6 million or so. There are also just a number of abrupt economic collapses that are likely coming, one of the most notable ones being South Africa, because of a number of reasons. The primary one being the rapid degradation and breakdown of their electricity grid. There's a link in the corner to a video you can watch about all the reasons and stuff behind that, but their grid has now been brought to and is constantly sitting on the brink of a total and absolute collapse. That event actually happening would likely be a final business blow, so to speak, and would scare an enormous number of industries and business out of South Africa, and such an economic crash would see their oil demand levels drop by a decent amount. There's actually a similar risk of something like that happening with Nigeria as well. And then also we have more generic or more finance-based economic crashes like Argentina, who is effectively just on a schedule for over a century now. Basically, every 20 years, they have some kind of economic death spiral and financial collapse. And obviously, every time their economy crashes, whatever their oil demand level happens to be at the time goes down significantly, usually by close to half. Turkey, their financial collapses and rebounds are less predictable and more random. But anyways, the overall point being is that peak oil demand isn't really going to look like this nice, smooth energy transition. It's going to look way more jagged and erratic. But that's it for this one. So thank you everybody for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. There's a link in the description to a Google Drive folder full of docs with all kinds of graphs, charts, data compilations. That's there 24/7. It's free. A link to my catch channel will be in the top pinned comment. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.